It's Friday, the 29th of November, 2024. Of course, it's about 26 days now to Christmas. Yes, we're counting down. Good morning and welcome to your perfect morning starter right here on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka. We're here for you live in Lagos, the nation's commercial capital.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. I hope you've been hanging in there. It's a Friday edition of the show, so thank God it's Friday, just like every other day. So it's a weekend, and a few more weekends, we'll head out to eat rice and chicken, as they call it. I love the Yuletide.
Aren't you blessed, Jeffrey? Some people can't afford chicken anymore.
Yes, I think I saw something online to that effect as well, about chicken or no chicken. But we're not alone. Kayode joins us from Abuja studios.
All this talk about chicken, guys, getting me hungry. Thankfully, it's a breakfast show. Welcome. I'm live for you in the nation's capital, Abuja. I'm Kayode Okikelu.
So, Kayode, how is the weather in Abuja at the moment? The Harmattan is a bit closer here, but not as intense, I guess, as it is in the nation's capital. While driving down, you see fog some days the fog took a break. Maybe they went to the market and come back to Moe area, depending. So how is it playing out for you there?
Well, temperature is about 20 degrees this morning, so it's getting colder by the day. I imagine in a few days we'll be knocking maybe 18 or less. So it's getting colder. You know, the nation's capital is much closer to the parts where it gets cold. So I imagine that it's much colder here than it is in Lagos. No thanks as well to the fact that there's a lot of vegetation in the nation's capital and, you know, the rocks and all. I am not trying to say Abuja is better than Lagos, okay? Everybody has a comparative advantage, but you can't take that away from the nation's capital. The serenity, the space to breathe, you know, the traffic is not as intense as well. So all in all, I can tell you this morning, the nation's capital is very calm. I mean, I didn't even hit any single traffic on my way here.
Well, it seems as if someone is doing a tango with Abuja, but east or west, Kayode, I tell you, home is the best. You're coming back home to meet us here in our own very dear Lagos, and we're looking forward to welcoming you. But I wonder if you're hinting at anything. But if you are, thank you for the hint. Speaking of hints, quite a lot has been happening. The controversy over the operation at the Port Harcourt refinery has not quite rested yet. It continues to rage about whether or not it's blending petrol or it's actually refining petrol from the beginning stage up until you get the final product. Questions continue about the quality that has been refined. Is it, you know, ideal for exportation, or is it just something that we can use back home here? But away from that to other issues happening at home as well, just as critical for other aspects of development. It was pleasant to note that, you know, hundreds of bandits have surrendered, laid down their weapons in Biriningwari area of Kaduna, and according to reports, they had terrorized that part of northern Nigeria, northwest Nigeria, for a very long time. Thanks to the efforts of the Ubasani administration, you know, to offer non-kinetic approach to solving the security challenge in the state. But if we looked at, you know, the de-radicalization program of past administrations that came with a lot of questions afterwards, we wonder, you know, how sustainable this is. What program of reintegration into the society do they have for these ex-bandits, ex-terrorists who had caused mayhem and sorrow, tears and blood for many homes? What program, you know, does the administration have for reintegration such that they did not return to their sins? Those are very critical issues. And we also noted yesterday that the tax reform bill that had caused not a little stir in the National Assembly, you know, has now scaled second reading, but it wasn't a walk in the park at all. Jeffrey, I wonder what you have been tracking.
Yeah, of course, the Port Harcourt refinery is still an issue, but these are the facts available. The NNPCL has not denied that they are blending. To what extent they are blending is the issues, okay? So the whole idea, if you look at that document, says that naphtha blended into PMS, maybe using C5 resin and all of the elements that they use to blend into petrol, but that that distillating column is able to distill crude oil straight to PMS. It is not happening at the Port Harcourt refinery as we speak. Now, there's an argument as to whether they got C5, of course, from Indorama, former Element Petrochemical. Where they got the naphtha, is it the product of the refinery? Because naphtha is also a byproduct of the distillation process. Whether that naphtha came from the Port Harcourt refinery is that argument, or they also brought naphtha outside. So that they are blending is not a different, it's not the argument at all as far as this is concerned. But the company has to come clean as to what exactly is going on. But from their document, they are saying that we have naphtha, we got C5 from Indorama to be able to get you PMS. So facts are available from what we know and what we see in that document. They cannot distill PMS from crude oil straight to PMS for whatever reason, because maybe it hasn't worked to that extent yet. So the way I look at it is like I gave you money to buy me a Lamborghini, you bought me a Keke Marwa, but there's still mobility all the same. But it's our country. For me,
so how
everything.
How far can Keke Marwa take you? Sorry, Jeffrey, I couldn't resist that.
But for me, at the end of the day, I'm happy some activity is going on, but transparency is required. So some people think that people who ask these questions are mindless critics. Oh, this thing has not been working for years. It's not working. Why are people complaining? Whether it's blending or if I know, if I was driving a Lambo, forgive me for using that brand, for instance, calling the name, and I didn't drive for like 20 years. I'm used to that lifestyle. I come back and say, look, I gave you money to buy that same car for me, and you bought me something lesser. We will discuss. That's why we're having this conversation currently. But it's our country. We celebrate every win, but we need to do it excellently and brilliantly.
Oh, absolutely, guys. It just speaks to the point we've raised time and again. You don't take people for granted. If something is B and you're parodying it as A, the onus is on you as someone, or at least an organization that is accountable to the people, to say, well, we obviously planned for A, but what we're getting is B, so it is B. In the meantime, we're working towards A. Be transparent, okay? Transparency and accountability should be a thing that is second nature to us. Nobody needs to nudge you extra or question you extra just for you to be transparent and accountable. It should be something that we should be known for. And kudos to those who are like that, whether they're in government or out of government, but it should be something widespread. We shouldn't have to keep going over this time and again. I know Petron had said that, no, they stick by their assertion that it's refining petrol and all of that. So again, the onus is on the NNPC Limited to ensure that all of these doubts are cleared. It is not too much to ask for. After all, it's taxpayers' money. Your money, my money. Jeffrey, Bukola.
Yeah, so what do we have for the people, Bukola?
Yeah, we have quite a lot. Very important subject matters to raise this morning, and we're starting with that report by Amnesty International that documented events of the August 2024 #EndBadGovernance protest. According to Amnesty International, security agents, the police to be precise, used excessive force to quash protesters, and events that followed resulted in the deaths of no less than 24 persons, 2 children included, and of course 1,200 persons were arrested according to Amnesty International. So we have the country director of the organization coming on the program today to talk us through the report and of course the demands that the organization is making as a result.
And now that will not be all we'll be talking about. We will revisit the just concluded COP29 that ended in Azerbaijan and some of the outcome of this particular COP. And of course, developing countries are not quite happy that some of the levels of commitment they want from the guys who are polluting the world are not as coming as much as they want. So all of this issue about carbon emission and what it means for you and I and for developing countries and the financial commitment that is required. Trump is on his way to the White House. And perhaps you know what happens to the Paris Agreement anytime Trump is in the White House. So we're going to discuss all of this, what it means for all of us, because it's an important conversation. They say it's a global emergency, but the commitment doesn't show that there is an emergency. Our correspondent, who is an environmentalist, will be joining us to break it down for us right here on the program.
But that's not all. We are going to meet a trailblazing 27-year-old who's redefining what's possible, really, with a doctorate degree under her belt. Well, this inspiring young leader is driven by a passion for education and development. So we sit with her as she shares the lessons she learned along the way, demystify the infamous question, is education a scam? Plus, of course, I'm going to be giving you a feel of yoga. This is a conversation that's been a long time coming. So if you're an enthusiast, if you're a skeptic, if you're just, new to it, join us on the show this morning as I give you a peek into the world of meditation and yoga.
Well, absolutely. So just hold your fire, hold your breath. We got you covered on the weekend edition of the program. But you can be part of the show. All you have to do is to go to XCTV Morning Brief. That's our hand of fellowship. Type what you have to type. Express how you want to express yourself. We'll help you amplify your voice right here on the program. But we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll bring you our top stories right here on the program. Stay with us.
Welcome back. And top on the brief this morning, President Bola Tinubu has reaffirmed Nigeria's commitment to strengthening ties with France in key sectors like food security, energy, solid minerals, education, and defense. The president, who was speaking at a joint press conference in Paris following talks with President Emmanuel Macron, highlighted Nigeria's untapped agricultural potential and invited global investors to leverage its welcoming investment climate. President Macron and his wife had earlier welcomed the president and the First Lady, Oluremi Tinubu, at the historic Invalids unvalid memorial complex, describing the visit as a milestone in bilateral relations. President Tinubu asked increased French investments in Nigeria's solid minerals collaboration in the creative industry and youth-focused initiatives.
The French-Nigerian business role is so important, and trade and investment has been integral to this partnership. As discussed earlier on, we need to do more, promote more, invest more in very important areas. Food security is one of them. No, we cannot but invest in one another's economy. And we owe it a responsibility by all of us to put together a food security program for private sector investors to come in, invest, with the risk, the fears that they may have. We've been working on stabilizing the security system in Nigeria, and we are getting closer and closer. We are doing better. We assure the investing community that Nigeria is open for business. We assure you of a free market economy, easy in, easy out, no hindrance.
And by the way, we didn't miss the pigeon exchange between both presidents yesterday. And of course, President Macron's pigeon is quite good. To other stories now. Over 2 months after the nationwide #EndBad governance protest, human rights organization Amnesty International is reporting that 24 protesters were killed and 1,200 were arrested between, during, and after the August 2025 #EndBad governance protests across the country. The rights organization made the revelation during the presentation of a documented report on the protests in Kano.
If you ask for drugs, if you ask for medicine, if you ask for good hospitals, what will you receive? Bullets. If you ask for better life for your children, better schools, what do you receive in return? Bullets.
And while we await the police's response, the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Kayode Egbetokun, has ordered the immediate sanitization and restructuring of the Kebbi State Command Criminal Investigation Department, CID. A statement signed by the Force Public Relations Officer, ACP Olumuyiwa Adejobi, says this is part of efforts to establish specialized investigative units and improve professionalism within the Nigeria Police Force. He adds that the IGP has directed that all officers currently occupying positions within the Kebbi State CID be reassigned to other commands, formations, and units, including training schools. And the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, is asking Nigerians to collectively denounce insurgency and all forms of criminality by teaming up with security agencies in the fight against insecurity. Speaking at an event in Abuja, General Musa says although the security threats being experienced in the country is not peculiar to Nigeria as a nation, the armed forces remain committed to quashing insurgents through what he describes as a whole society approach. General Musa also restated the commitment of the armed forces to protect the nation's democracy at all times.
The threats we face as a country are multifaceted, ranging from terrorism and insurgency to socio-economic issues and community unrest. Arising from these complex dynamics, it has become increasingly evident that no single institution can solve these issues in isolation. No one can do it alone, and we need to collaborate together as Nigerians. The armed forces, the security agencies need the support of the populace who are everywhere, because between the armed forces, the security agencies, and the terrorists, the insurgents and the bandits, we are trying to win the hearts and minds of the people. Thus, a whole society effort that brings together every segment of our nation is needed to build lasting peace, security, and progress. This can only be achieved by integrating our collective expertise, resources, and influence of various stakeholders with a view to creating a resilient framework for both security and emergency management strategies through civil-military relations. The threats we are facing are not peculiar to Nigeria alone, not peculiar to the region or Africa. It is the whole of humanity that is being threatened.
Away from security now, the Senate has passed President Bola Tinubu's 4 tax bills for second reading through voice votes. This followed presentation by the Senate leader, Senator Opeyemi Bamidele, in a general lead debate. Although the reforms were generally acknowledged as critical to overhauling Nigeria's tax system and reducing the tax burden on citizens, Senator Ali Ndume expressed reservations about the timing and certain provisions of the bill. And the immediate past Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, has called for collaboration between professional mediator bodies and the public sector to help make mediation of cases accessible for the less privileged. Professor Osinbajo also agrees that professional mediation be adopted as the mechanism for addressing disputes and conflicts. And the 7th prosecution witness, Mr. John Adetola, who is testifying in the case against the former governor of Central Bank of Nigeria, has told a Lagos High Court sitting in Ikeja how he collected the sum of $400,000 on behalf of Mr. Godwin Emefiele. Adetola, who identified himself as an executive assistant to Mr. Emefiele, also narrated how he handed over the money to Emefiele. He gave this testimony on Thursday while answering questions from the counsel to the EFCC prosecutor, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Rotimi Oyedepo. Adetola told trial judge Justice Rahman Oshodi that the functions of his office include managing office correspondences, attending to visitors, and any other tasks as assigned by his boss. He said the duties give him direct access to Emefiele. Justice Rahman Oshodi adjourned till December the 10th for the cross-examination of the witness. And good news, the Naira has shown resilience in the foreign exchange market on Thursday, closing at 1,644 Naira at the official NAFEM market, 0.96% appreciation from Wednesday's 1,660 Naira 83 kobo to the dollar. The NAFEX rate also strengthens slightly by 0.40% to 1,682 Naira 89 kobo to the dollar, following the CBN's recent 25 basis point hike in interest rate. Meanwhile, year to date, the Naira has depreciated by 40.4% from its starting rate of 988 Naira to 988 Naira 46 kobo to the dollar at the official market, reflecting ongoing volatility and FX liquidity challenges. Sports now. The latest FIFA rankings released on Thursday has Nigeria recording the most significant drop following an unimpressive performance in the last international window. In the November rankings, the 3-time African champions plummeted from 36th to 44th globally, an 8th-placed decline from its previous 1,503 total points. The team's points now stand at 1,482.23 points. Among African teams, Nigeria is ranked 5th behind Morocco, Senegal, Egypt, and Algeria. In foreign news, Australia has approved a social media ban for children aged under 16 after an emotive debate that has gripped the nation. The law forces tech giants from Instagram and Facebook owner Meta to TikTok to stop minors logging in or face fines of up to $49.5 million. A trial of methods to enforce it will start in January, with the ban to take effect in a year. This sets a benchmark for jurisdictions around the world with one of the toughest regulations targeting big tech. Big story needed for everyone to reflect on adult supervision of screen time for children. Screen time not just for social media, especially social media, by the way, but also for the traditional media. But what are you saying about the other big stories from the president's visit to France, where he went to seek foreign investment and, of course, to further strengthen bilateral relations between Nigeria and France? Two other stories from within Nigeria: the Senate passing the President's tax reform bill, getting it to second reading stage, and to other security stories. Let's get started with a review of your thoughts that we so love to read on this segment as Jeffrey joins me now. Hello again, Jeffrey. So what have you for us?
Absolutely. We'll get started with what happened at the Senate, which has to do with the passing of that reform bill. The tax reform bill is quite controversial. Alain Dume was very clear with his position. He even said, I think he voted against it and all of that. His position is that the timing is wrong, a couple of other things, but we also understand you can't throw the baby on the bathwater. But the Senate has done what he has to do. So this is the position of our Senate as far as this bill is concerned.
I think I like his expression. He said something about, keeping the baby but throwing away the water.
Okay.
And by extension, he meant take it back to the National Executive Council, let the governors make their input before it is represented before the Senate.
All right, this is what Adamo is saying as far as this is concerned. The bills have generated widespread opposition, especially with regard to VAT, sharing model on derivation, equity, and population. The gray areas need to be deliberated very well, and they require enough time and serious consultation.
And Donald is the next user. Donald says, good news, state governors will know the essence of capital investment. I hope the reform wakes them up. However, I pity those who have promised the new minimum wage for political gain. They need to work harder now to meet up. No free money again. Earn as much as you are worth, I guess he meant to say.
So that bill, that controversial part is simply saying, work hard to make your people consume a lot or produce a lot. Either way is gain for you. This is coming from, he calls himself or herself, Yoruba World. The North may be greatest beneficiary of this bill in the long run, if only they can look inwards.
And there's more, Jeffrey. You have this next one, right?
A Lucky says, for the people who don't understand why the tax reform is important, I urge you to do your research. The tax reform bill suggests government should only tax business profit, not losses. Food tax free, except expensive commodities that an average man will think twice before buying. That's quite funny.
Yes, a lot of skepticism.
Absolutely.
On to the next talking point now, Jeffrey.
Yes, the one that has to do with Emmanuel Macron. Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, had served as an intern at the French embassy in Nigeria when he was a young man, and he used to really visit the shrine, the Fela shrine, and he learned how to speak Pidgin. So, appreciating the visit of our president, he expressed himself in Pidgin, on X, and the president also responded with that gesture. So it was an exchange of Pidgin on Twitter.
Let's hear some of the Pidgin, Jeffrey, right? Oh. Now, big honor for France, dear President, for me to welcome you for this state visit. Jeffrey,
as one big partner and friend of today and tomorrow, I wish you could have it. It's still they sweet me well.
For Bele.
As I remember, say I be young intern for French embassy for Nigeria at that time. That is the French president, Emmanuel Macron. So our president actually now responded to him and said, "Merci beaucoup, President Macron." Now, big privilege. They strengthen this bond where join Nigeria and France together. You sweet me well to hear say these memories of your time as young intern for Nigeria still they inspire you. It shows say the connection between our two countries is strong and will continue to be strong. So that's the much you can take. So diplomacy went Pidgin. It's beautiful to see something really, of the seriousness at the end of the day. All right, so these are the reactions of the people. Let's get to you guys. Ahmed, you said the president seemed to be showcasing the potential of Nigeria to the world. We should be lucky to have one of the most decorated Nigerian presidents. That is, I don't know what you were hiding, with good intention.
Well, David O, maybe it's another David O, who's writing in, he says, Macron, they write for Pidgin. it's high time we make Pidgin our official language.
What do you think about that?
Well,
it's the only language that everybody speaks.
Maybe one of our official languages.
Well, I don't want to go there. I wanted to say something. Kelechi says, Pidgin don't get international recognition with that.
Yeah.
Pidgin, Nigeria, official language. Sorry, I'm not going to interpret for our international audience. Just ask a Nigerian around you. The idea is that we're trying to export Pidgin.
Well, Adamson says, Macron, na man you be. We love you. They feel like make I visit France. Come do Int'l like you did in Nigeria. So everybody has gone the Pidgin way now in this exchange.
Idoko said, I love this concept of using Pidgin. It is part of our identity and status and stands us out among community of nations. So there's Pidgin in Nigeria, in Ghana, in several African countries. But I think Nigerian Pidgin is the best. And in Nigeria, I think the Warri Pidgin is the original Pidgin.
So which one is the fake Pidgin, Jeffrey?
I do not know.
Well, don't let other Pidgin speakers come
I love
for you
Warri
now.
Pidgin.
Because there are other variations of Pidgin in other African countries, that are just as melodious and just as creative in trends and in disposition as well.
I used to feel that when I hear Ghanaians speak Pidgin, it's like it's incomplete. Sorry, my Ghanaian friends. Akwaba. Still welcome me, I'm your brother.
And there are Cameroonian Pidgin English speakers as well. If you hear their Pidgin, it's quite melodious.
Okay.
All right, so let's go to the next talking point. Abuja residents to enjoy free CNG bus rides in the state now till January the 6th in specific areas: Eagle Square, Berger, Area 1, Maraba, Zuba. And Adex Smith is the first writer who says, good one, replicate this in Lagos and Ibadan with Abeokuta ASAP.
Daniel said this is a good development, but the year winding down and most offices going on holiday, I hope it will be extended to January. I think they just did because that is when we will need it the most.
Absolutely, particularly during the Yuletide when Nigerians begin to travel home. Benedict is the next user. Benedict says, kudos, but there are better ways to manage it by giving experienced transport entrepreneurs.
Okay, I hope we have more time. Let's talk about Nigeria dropping, record drop in this ranking of FIFA. NLC Norwegian said top break for the Super Eagles, but there's always room for a comeback.
And Aloba, okay, we've taken Aloba.
This is CG.
Yeah.
This is for, that's CG now. For the Super Eagles dropping in ranking from 36, I think, to 44. It says no surprises here. That home loss to the 24th ranked Rwanda was always going to have consequences. So I think that's the much we can take on this one.
Yeah.
Because I'm not happy to see that our dear Super Eagles are dropping in ranking. But let's hope that as the qualifiers for the World Cup starts next year, we will improve and get better because we have a lot on our hands. We have the Africa Cup of Nations and we have the World Cup and we have to put these guys together. Sometimes even get new guys to come in and, spur the team. The hungry guys, the guys who haven't seen these international
games.
That's how, what's his name? Clemens Westall discovered some of the great guys we call legends now in the Super Eagles. So maybe we need to go back to that playbook as we appreciate the ones that are playing now. All of the guys that are playing for us now, we appreciate you guys. You guys are doing incredibly well. But it can be better, and it can be better.
And that's the task before, current technical advisor, Austin Eguavon, to look at, those clubs and fish out those very energetic guys, young ones who have the fire that we need to inject into a new national team such that we can, climb a few more steps higher in the international rankings.
Absolutely. So we'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll bring you the very first conversation. Amnesty International has released a document and says 24 people were killed, including 2 children, and over 1,000 were arrested. They are making a case so that the government will act. We're having that conversation just after this break. Join us again.
So welcome back. As we start off this morning, we begin an engagement. Of course, it's always been an element that is significant with the Morning Brief on Channels Television. So we're taking our engagement online as well as on site to find out what you're saying about some very critical issues that affect you. So a member of our team went to town to find out how your ability to cash is affecting you. How are you getting cash from ATMs, or where are you getting your cash from? So let's find out what he brought back.
Teller machine and withdraw their money. But within the last few years, we've seen the rise of the point of sale machine, or POS. Now all you need to do is approach any of these POS operators or agents, inform them of the amount of cash you need, carry out the transaction with your card or via transfer, and you will be on your way. Now, both of these methods of withdrawal are very much available to Nigerians. But which is better? I was on the streets of Lagos to catch up with the people and find out what their preferred option is. Here's what they had to say. ATM or POS, which do you prefer using?
I prefer to use the ATM.
POS.
I prefer using the ATM.
I prefer ATM.
I prefer POS.
POS.
I prefer POS.
I prefer using ATM machine. POS.
But what is the reason for their preference?
I went to another bank to withdraw, and the bank swallowed my ATM. And I remember for hours, I was there trying to get my ATM out. It was not, and that day I just decided that I was not going to do this ATM thing again. I will tell you that for over 2 years now, I've not visited the ATM machine or cards or anything. I've been using POS because it's very easy. I don't care the 100 naira. I really don't mind. The 100 naira, 200 naira charges, I don't mind.
The reason why I prefer ATMs is that you're sure the money is coming straight from the bank. It's not counterfeit. The only inconvenience is that, like, I got to one this morning, cash had finished. But I know it's one of the things that happen, because I know that for them to get cash is not easy.
POSs are just easier to use for me and faster in transactions. ATMs usually take a long time, and sometimes the buttons are hard to press.
ATM swallow card, but POS does not do that. No, I prefer using POS more than ATM because I don't mind giving them all what I, because I know that my transaction is always successful with POS. But that ATM, sometimes you might just withdraw, you won't see your money, but they will debit you. You will need to enter bank and start complaining.
I've had bad experiences with ATM. ATM has swallowed my card before. So stuff like that just make me feel like, oh, let me just be using POS. I feel this thing is safer. ATM is safer, 100% safer. But for me, like, if I'm to, like, say I want to do something, like if I want to get cash and, like, I need to withdraw the cash immediately, and there's the ATM in front of me like this, and there's a POS like at the other side of the street, I'll go to that POS.
I think ATM is better. If there's no money, you will know. But POS, sometimes you don't know, and a lot of people use it for fraudulent activities. Nigerian banks should make sure ATMs are everywhere. You know, not all necessary around the banks.
POS is very, very fast. Once I put my card, no issue. And again, if you go to the ATM, sometimes they'll tell you no cash. That is not dispensing. But the POS, you always get cash. If there is a problem, actually, they will give you receipts. Then you can go to the bank and complain. It's not every time that there is always a problem like that.
Using the ATM is still the safest to me. POS actually makes things faster than using the ATM, but then I don't trust them, but I trust the bank more. If anything happens to my card, I can go to the bank and complain, and I'll get my card back. If I try to withdraw from the bank and the money doesn't come out, but they debit me, I can always make reports. But for POS, sometimes it's gone.
Meanwhile, some people seem indifferent and would prefer to go for what works for them in the moment of need.
They both have their usefulness. So if you know time is not of the essence, then you go for ATM, right? And if you know it's about convenience for you, you need to get things done as quick as possible, then you go for POS. So I don't have preference. I go for both, depending on the situation. I would prefer that ATM is actually more accessible than it is. I mean, if you are, say, in my area, you have to use ATM. You literally have to actually
take a keke to the bus stop to use the ATM. But then we have POS all around. So unless I'm going to do more than just getting money from the bus stop, if I have other things to do, I can then withdraw from there. That means it's not urgent. But if it's urgent, definitely I have to stay in my area and withdraw.
So has the tide finally turned, or will we witness a resurgence of the ATM? For now, that remains to be seen. From the streets of Lagos, Egosa Eboigbe, Channels Television.
So the findings from that report, is it a function, the findings of the preference of the users of ATM and POS, is it a function of availability or of a deficit? Is it a function of the non-functionality of the system, where things should work? Speaking of what should work, there should be an abundance of cash in all ATMs, but we're finding that there is none. And as a result, people are saying we would rather use the POS. There's a preponderance of preference for POS there to ATMs. I wonder if, you are deducing something different, Kadi and Jeffrey.
Well, they've always said it's the survival of the fittest. But I think evolution, or the definition of evolution now, is survival of the easiest, right? And for a lot of people, it's the ease with which they can access their monies. That's what really matters to them. It's the fact that POS operators are close by. On the street, you can find, several of them just side by side, right? So the ease is very important for a lot of people. I mean, Ehosa did a great job capturing all of those views. And I think these are things that government should use, and not just government, even businesses, the financial service providers and the rest. This is kind of data. I mean, thanks to Ehosa, they don't have to go on the street as much. You can just use this data to, sort your operations, know what to focus on. Yes, we have the ATMs that are still around, a lot of them gathering dust. So we need to make a decision. Do we still want to keep using ATMs? I know a lot of people who say that they prefer to use ATMs. You heard some of them. So maybe we can do a 50-50, 70-30, but of course, the customer is always king. So if the customers say this is what we want, naturally, the businesses have to go in that direction. But for some of us, we do neither POS nor ATM. They just do a transfer, right? Just right there, do a transfer, and that's it. So for me, I think this is valuable data that Ehosa has been able to gather, at least for those who are in the know, or at least are able to do something to use. Guys.
Absolutely. I see ATM as grassroots mobilization for financial inclusion. The power of immediacy, that access that they have, is quite critical. But one of the reasons why we had to do this is to also show that the ATMs need to have money in them. So there is a question of choice, not you're forced to use the POS. So you have the opportunity to, you want to use the POS, it's fine by you. If you want to use the ATM, no problem. If you want to do transfer like Kayode and I and the rest of us, no problem. So whatever way you want to use to do any form of financial transaction, as we drive towards financial inclusion, let that option be available at all times. So it's just a question of choice. You decide which to use, not that you're discriminating one way or the other. You make the money is not available in the machines, and so people are now forced to use the one closest to them. But in all, it's brilliant to see that in Nigeria we have come to this point. In the 1990s, we didn't have this opportunity, transfer online. Did we even have internet in the first place? So now we're doing POS, we're doing ATM, we're doing transfer. Sometimes we just need to be grateful for how far we've come. I remember in the whole of the country those days, I lived in Port Harcourt, I grew up in Port Harcourt, and I know that they used to have Int'l, just piggyback on what we're talking about. The entire country had less than 100,000 access to mobile phones. And today we have millions of people. So the beauty of technology is what we're celebrating. But at the end of the day, it's for the banks and the financial institutions to be responsible. Do not deny people who want to use the ATM their monies. Put the money there. If they choose to come there, fine. If they don't want to come, it's okay by them. By the end of the day, as Kayode said, it's good data for us to see that people are they now have choices. So if you want speed, you know where to go to. If you don't want to see that your money, whether it's authentic or it's not authentic, you know where to go to. It's like television and radio. Radio has the power of immediacy. Well, don't worry about what TV has. It's off so that I don't preach against my own side. But at the end of the day, it's about access, it's about availability, it's about how you can easily get your monies. So I think it's brilliant work.
And not to talk of the unhealthy outcome of the POS option, which is, you have to pay more. I always say it's like a second exchange rate that has been created within the, commercial system in the economy, where, and sometimes there are Shylock POS operators who would charge for as high as 600 naira for you to collect 20,000 naira. Whereas if you were to collect money from your own bank, the ATM of your own bank, you're not charged at all. But if you went to other banks, perhaps you're charged about 53 naira or 37 naira. So, do the deduction, do the calculation, 53 naira to 600 naira for 20,000 naira. So that's a whole lot. And that is, more like being ripped off, of your own money that you, saved in your own bank, or perhaps it's a salary account that you got and you worked for legitimately. So these are the issues. Is the deficit in ATMs, is it deliberate by banks such that there's a partnership with POSs? This report is also data, for the CBN, the regulator of the banks, to look into and ensure that the system works for everyone. So where are we headed from here?
Absolutely. We can't keep talking. We just have to keep talking about these things. We're interested in what affects every Nigerian. From issue of power, we're going to look at power. Of course, PMS is the star boy of all the issues right now. And Nigerians are shouting, let this price go down. Well, we don't know how soon that will be. We're just getting the refineries up and running as soon as, although there's a controversy, but at least something is coming out from there, whatever it is. But these are the issues that concern Nigerian: food, energy, power, all of these elements. Our responsibility on the show, on this breakfast show, is to make sure that we bring you up to speed, or we bring your issues to the policymakers, the people that are responsible for general well-being and welfare, which we voted for, committing our commonwealth to say, look, you gentlemen and ladies, please, this is our money. Help us manage it effectively. At the end of the day, give us choice. So it's also brilliant on the issue of, we have PMS, now we have CNG, although the penetration is not as much as possible, which have myriads of mix-up or mixes, if you will, of resources or availability of some of these options for us to be able to do the things we want to do as a people. So let's not be limited by just one thing. So if I want energy, I want to have as much as possible in terms of my options. If I want to do transactions, I want to have as much as possible. But hey, we will now be shifting gears to something else. We talked about Amnesty International releasing that report that 24 persons were killed, including 2 children, in the last August End Bad Governance protests. And they have names and pictures. So this is not a conjecture. They have a document to that effect. I'm sure if you go online, you'll see that. So they'll break it down for us, what this findings further says, and what the recommendations are. Bukola.
And so we have joining us on the program the Nigeria Country Director for Amnesty International, Mr. Isa Sanusi, who joins us virtually this morning. Good morning and welcome to the program, Mr. Sanusi. Thank you for joining us. Let's, set the ball rolling right away. Walk us through the high points of the report, and of course, speak to evidence that you have provided to back up the data that you have provided in this report.
Thank you very much for having me this morning. So this report is a result of a research that started from as early as the 10th of August this year, and the 12th to the 17th of August. And then we did follow up field research in September, we did in October. And at the end of the day, we arrive at what we arrived. We have followed all the processes. Amnesty International is a research organization, campaigning a research organization, but our strength is research. So we have research standards, which include making sure that for every claim we are going to make in public, we ought to have a layer, not only one, but we ought to have a layer of evidence, indisputable layer of evidence, that we present to the public to prove what we are saying. And in the cases of this death that happened in the End Bad Governance protests, we have all those evidence. And in order to close the window of disputation, that's why we took our time. We would have just issued a press release, but we know that there were a series of shameful denials about these things, and that's why we took the pain, we took the time, that's long, to release the report of our findings, and we made sure that there are names, locations, age, and everything. And we have much more evidence in terms of videos, in terms of medical records, in terms of testimonies of families and eyewitnesses, civil society organizations, journalists, and many other stakeholders. And we believe that this is enough to convince everyone that atrocities have been committed. And the next thing is for the government to hold those responsible to account, because killing peaceful protesters, no matter the circumstance, is unlawful, is against the law, and we want a situation whereby this will be the last time any law enforcement agent will just kill a Nigerian and just get away with it.
I'm sure that we have the slides of names, because I will look through that document. You had pictures. We have pictures. We have the circumstance that led to some of the deaths, as well as maybe you could, as we prepare those names, you could walk us through some of the things you heard that are quite touching, as well as whether or not you presented this to the government and what their response are. Because I know you mentioned time and again in that document, as you've alluded now, that there has been denial as to the effect that people were actually killed. But now you're saying we know at least 24 persons and a child or two were involved. I saw that a 5-year-old boy, who I understand was sent on an errand, was caught in that crossfire and all of that. So maybe walk us through some of the things you heard from the people, as well as what the government is saying, whether that is if you've presented it to them.
Well, one of the things we do before we issue every report we are doing, is the first thing we do, we believe in what we call fair hearing and the right of reply. So we send to the government all the details that we have, and we ask for their own comments or observations or their own version of things. Unfortunately, we didn't hear from them up to now. We sent a follow-up later. We didn't hear from them. Now, when it comes to the stories, let me tell you, yesterday when we were presenting this report in Kano, I came close to tears, because we were showing the video of what happened, and the mother of one of the people killed, burst into tears, and all of us were disrupted by her tears, and we have to concentrate on consoling her, because it's like yesterday was the day her daughter was taken away by a bullet from a law enforcement agent of Nigerian government. So there was a boy called Salahuddin. Salahuddin is just 17 or 18, and he had finished his WAEC exams, and he's waiting for his result. Unfortunately, he fell ill from the 29th of July. And his friends came on the 1st of August to visit him. And when they came, he went out to say, okay, let me see them off. And on his way, he was hit by a bullet and he died instantly. And there was also the case of Muhammad Husani, who is a small boy, a small boy who was asked, he asked his grandmother to give him money to buy some things. And she said, no, I cannot give you, but I can give you money to go and buy some food stuff so that the whole family will have the meal that you want to have. And she gave him the money. And when he went out, they started hearing shouting, and then they brought his bloody body back to her. These stories are many, and in Maiduguri, what happened is even more sad, because young men came out on the 1st of August to work at a peeling station called AA Kime at Bolori Junction, and they were just sitting down. They were having Indomie. They ordered Indomie from Meshai near them, and they were just sitting down, and security were passing by, and one of them just threw a hand grenade at them, and 3 of them died. One of them is still in hospital with life-changing spinal injury. So these stories are really many. And what will really shock you was the fact that majority of those killed are not actually even protesters. They are just maybe passing by, or people just who necessarily have to come out maybe to buy something, and they end up being killed. This shows you the level of lawlessness, the level of cycle of violence that we have, because people in law enforcement agencies believe in Nigeria that they have a carte blanche, blank ticket, blank license to kill people and get away with it. The stories are really disturbing. No matter how strong you are, when you are listening to the parents and eyewitnesses, you definitely will come close to tears. And that's why we presented all this evidence, so that to shorten the time of usual denial, to abridge the situation and make sure that government has concrete evidence. People have, in fact, yesterday when we were launching the report, some civil society organizations came and said that, well, we believe the figures are higher than what you people are saying. But we said that, no, we only work with what we can establish, what we can stand by, what we can verify, what we have had evidence about. And this is what happened. And I believe that the time now is for the government to look at this report and do the right thing, fish out those responsible, right from the top command to the lowest, and make sure that they face justice and the families of those killed are given appropriate compensation, not the usual Nigerian compensation, actually.
Well, reading that report will certainly get anyone emotional, because this is about lives, right? And I know this is not the first time you've put out figures about, fatalities from that protest. In fact, the very first time, just in the early periods of the protests, you had put out figures. At that time was 13 lives, you said, were lost. And at that point, the police responded. And this was a statement by the police spokesperson at that time, saying that, well, only 7 lives were lost, contrary to the 13 you said. And for that Borno incident in particular, this is the police's account. The police said that in Borno State, 4 individuals lost their lives and 34 were severely injured in a terrorist attack by suspected Boko Haram and ISWAP elements who infiltrated the crowd of protesters and detonated an IED. But your account says that it was a grenade thrown by the police. So the police has one account on the one hand, and then there is your account. Which do we then believe? What evidence backs your own? Again, we've reached out to the police even about this latest report, and we're yet to hear from them. So this statement is the statement they released as far back as August.
Yes, so I thank you very much for taking your time to bring up this statement. And actually, when we receive, one thing that I want our viewers and everyone to understand is that most of these killings, it is parents of the people killed, parents of the persons that were killed. Directly, we heard from that incident in Maiduguri, directly from the father of one of the young men that was killed. He told us that my son was killed, and this is what the government is saying is not true. This is the evidence we have. We have all the videos. It's just that the videos are gory. I would have asked you to maybe put it out for the viewers to see it. But the issue is, police issued a statement saying there is Boko Haram and all that. So imagine a situation whereby a government agency will come out within minutes of an incident to say this is who is responsible. Just imagine that situation, because when there is an incident, you have to investigate it thoroughly and to establish. So what is their evidence? Have they presented any evidence to prove to Nigerians that the incident was as a result of maybe infiltration of Boko Haram or ISWAP or something? I don't think. The most insulting thing in all this August protests is this narrative, this false narrative created to to divert attention from what happened in Maiduguri. We are also thoroughly investigating, and we are trying to fish out the people who are responsible, who are in that convoy. This is what we are trying to find out. And we have to call them out and make sure that they face justice. It is so unfortunate that instead of taking responsibility and doing the right thing, a government agency will resort to this kind of very insulting, so to say, I'm sorry to use that word, very insulting narrative, because the father of one of the young men that was killed called me. I mean that this is what the government is saying is not true. And we ask for evidence. In fact, one of the people affected is still in hospital. He is alive. Unfortunately, he has a very life-changing spinal injury. I think the government should go and find out from him or from his parents, because he is an eyewitness. He is alive, even though he is now disabled. But I believe that if there is any dispute, he will be the one to resolve that dispute by telling exactly what happened. But the narrative about the infiltration or whatever is completely false and is an insult to the lives of people that were killed, and is an assault on our conscience. And I believe that the police should withdraw that statement and apologize and do the right thing, investigate, and bring the person responsible to justice.
The police has had August, or let's start from September, October, now we're in November, 3 months to really look into this. And I remember in August yet again, when you put out your own preliminary findings, the police responded on August the 3rd. I don't know when you first reached out to the police with this latest report. Maybe you can tell us so we can understand the time frame, because you would expect that the police would respond to this immediately and say, well, this is a fact we have. Again, imagine that these people have gotten death certificates. There will be some sort of paper trail, which shouldn't be hard for the police to pick up. So give us a time frame for this latest finding of yours, over 24 deaths. When did you reach out to the police? And is this something you've gotten from time to time? Because we need to speak to accountability as well.
So immediately these things happen. It is in the week of 17th of August. That is like 10 days or 7 days after the protest. And we asked them to investigate, and we even asked them, if possible, to have a meeting with them so that we can discuss about these things. So unfortunately, we didn't hear from them. At the end of September, we again wrote to them, asking them to give us an account of their own investigation of what happened, because we believe that as an institution, they must have conducted an investigation. Unfortunately, but the most discouraging thing about communicating about this thing is that it is very easy for you to expect a reply when somebody admits. For example, the military did something quite unusual, because a soldier killed a child in Samaru's area. And immediately evidence came out that it was that soldier. At the beginning, there were attempts to cover up and pretend that it is another person. But when it became very apparent and clear that a soldier killed that child, the military did the right thing. Nigerian army issued a statement and said that the soldier responsible has been identified, and all the internal processes of justice are ongoing. Unfortunately, in the case of the police, they just said that at one instance they said it's fake news, and another instance they said nobody was killed completely. So imagine, I remember that one of the researchers was telling me that when they went to Kano, there is an area called Region Lemo, where they went to visit the parents of one of the victims, a young man. And they found the father sitting down on the bed of his son that was killed on that day. And the father was repeatedly, he was holding his mobile phone, watching the police spokesperson saying that nobody was killed and shedding tears. And the man told our people that he always watched that video in the boys' room, and he always feel like, he will die, because It is painful. And that day they found him. In fact, I have a video of him watching that video of the police spokesperson saying that nobody was killed. It is all fake news. And the man was crying and saying that, what kind of country are we living in? What kind of country are we in? So if there is denial, I don't know where you think you will start with. And that's why we are not surprised when we didn't receive any response from them. Of course, in other instances, when we contacted the police about some issues, they responded effectively. And but in this anything, and that is something that we are asking them to do our report and saying that, okay, we now have an evidence. Our usual way is to just issue a statement and say that this and this happened. But because of the denial, we have to take our time to make sure that we can put out this evidence to the people.
So following this denial now, I wonder what the next step would be. Yes, Amnesty International is, calling for justice for the slain and for those arrested. But we have watched some of the videos, and in fact, we put it into Google data to verify before we even used that one. And we saw that, in fact, some of the videos were used in recorded in August 2024. So are the evidences provided by Amnesty International justiciable? And if you're just a research organization and you would not initiate processes in court, where do the aggrieved go from here?
Well, as an organization, we have processes. We are a campaigning and research organization. There are no possibilities we cannot explore, including the judicial one. Beyond that, we have a very thorough process. We are a global organization, and we are going to, number one, if nothing is done, the next thing is that we are going to take this matter into the international level. An international level in the sense that we will mobilize our members across 150 countries to make sure that there is a rounded campaign for justice for these people that were killed. Another thing is that it is not only Amnesty International that is deeply disturbed by what happened and want justice for these victims. We are also talking to other organizations and individuals to make sure that we put heads together to take the necessary next step, legal and otherwise, to make sure that this matter has been appropriately dealt with in a judicial process. Number three is that we are going to also take measures to make sure that the families or those responsible are clearly identified. We can trace them. We can identify them clearly. It will take time, but we can identify them. And if we identify them, the next thing is that we have to compel the government, whether they like it or not, to bring them to justice. There is no way we can allow this matter to go like that. 24 people, 24, cannot go away like that.
All right, a fine place to leave it. Thank you very much, Mr. Issa Sanusi, who is the Nigeria Country Director for Amnesty International. Thank you for your time on the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
And when we return, we'll review the resolutions from the just concluded COP29 climate conference in Azerbaijan as our environment correspondent joins us to give us the high points. So stay with us, we'll be right back.
Welcome back. Let's now look in retrospect to COP29 that ended in Azerbaijan in Baku. They are heading to Belém in Brazil very soon, but there's been some conversation, and from the document I saw and the conversations we've had, developing countries are not as quite excited as they should be. Some people are saying, is this what it is all about, or is the hypocrisy of the global north? Well, the person that was there with them is right here with us, Ayala Kasim, our environment correspondent. Ayala, welcome to the program.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
Yes.
Right?
Every time there's COP, we bring you back. So you sat there, you watched them, you saw all the negotiations, you saw the people that were paying lip service, you saw the people that were committed. Maybe you walk us through some of the highlights besides what we read and seen.
Right, so the thing is, we need $1.3 trillion to combat the impact of climate change globally. It is science-led. It's not just like some Nigerians sat down or some Brazilians or Indians sat down. No, it is a UN-led scientific projection. Like, this is how much it's going to cost to build adaptation, mitigation, and fossil fuel, the transition from dirty fuel that you're using now to clean energy transition. So it's going to cost us $1.3 trillion. So they sat down and said, okay, so how are we going to get this money? Of course, there are countries that, like, we didn't do anything much, especially those in the African. Of course, it's becoming like usual thing. Okay, we know that we didn't do much. But then, if you're asking us to do right by you, like, we should not use dirty fuel. Nigeria, for instance, we're first of all producing economy. If you're telling us not to use it, then we need money to transition away. Like, now, look at the subsidy removal. Look at the implication of that, high cost of living and all that. So if you are telling us not to use what we have to develop our economy, then you need to help us to use what you want us to use, which is the renewable energy. So that is what the conversation is all about. And there are some countries that are already feeling it. Just imagine what we saw in Borno State. There are some people, the small island states, that are the Fiji, Tuvalu, and all those countries that their population is not up to one local government in Lagos State. So they are suffering the impact. They're saying that they will be underwater. And they even walked out of the negotiation at some point because they felt that you're not giving us what we want. There was one report when we were flying about, they said $1.3 trillion. And they were, by Thursday, last week, Thursday, they were saying about 200 billion. And in the press conference with African group of negotiators, because you have to be in groups, African group of then there's small alliance of small island states, and then least developed countries, all those groups. So they had this press conference, and somebody said, oh, there's this talk about $200 billion, and somebody said, is it a joke? 29. That was it. Everybody laughed and all, but at the end of the day, it was 300 were able to come with, and some of the issues. This
300, is it yearly?
The 300 per year.
Per year, annually.
By 2035. Okay. So you're going to get that. But then, if you're looking at 1.3 trillion yearly, and you got 300 billion yearly, do you understand that? But then that is the floor. That at least the promise is that they're going to give 300 billion. But then that is like in public fund. But then you have to. The ceiling is still, they still left it there. I think paragraph 8 of it still, this still including 1.3 trillion, but then it has to be private finance and all that. Everything comes together till 1.3. But then who is enforcing it? Yeah. In Copenhagen, Copenhagen 2009, they said, President Obama walked in when it was deadlocked. He walked in and was like, we're going to give you $100 billion per year. Not until towards the end of it did they started doing, okay, we're going to give you, they started doing something. And that's what they're ramping. This is the guy that the EU representative that was telling us, like, okay, you know what, we are with you. You know that we don't, but let us be realistic. And we want to be realistic. We don't want them to promise $1.3 trillion and we will not do it. So he was like, okay, this is reasonable. That's what he said. Like, we know you're angry. Remember the Nigerian, the DG of the Nigerian Climate Change Council, she was livid. The Indian woman was, she was not having it with them. And she called them out, like, you know what? We know what you do. Trust is gone. And for them to rebuild the trust, hopefully before Belém in Brazil. In next year, this lady, we hope that
the Indian representative.
Yes.
And to think that wealthier nations waited, until the last minute before they came up. And that seemed like another strategy yet again, right?
See, okay, but this time, I must give it to the people from developing countries. Usually by Friday, the whole place will be empty. But people were there till Sunday morning. I saw some people that we came together on Tuesday. Some of the negotiators, they were like, we are ready for you. Whatever you're bringing, we are ready. So this time for the very first, because they know the Africans now, especially Africans, by Friday, there's no money for these negotiations and all. we are out of the place. So, and the man, where some people were calling it shotgun deal, like they put a gun to your head, because you can see the closing ceremony was held 3 times. The first one, they said by midnight, even it was past midnight, the first one. So we're all on, we're doing coffee. So they called that one, we went in, and then the man, after I think 1 hour, nothing, they're just deferring everything. They're just deferring in nothing. There was nothing to pass. So then he called, he said, we'll come back at 4 a.m. So everybody thought, let us go home, and then we'll come back in the morning and continue. But he was like, no. Like, we'll come. And then they came back around that 4 a.m., and he called, and we did 20 minutes, and then he told us, go again. And everybody like, what just happened? He said, no, 30 minutes break. So we started seeing the negotiators in the room, and they're like, no, we have to do something, we have to do something, we have to do something. And then when they came back, they started clapping and saying that we got a deal.
I'm sure Kayode has questions for you. We have plenty, it's just that we don't have so. So Kayode, it's up to you now.
Ah, goodness me. I know COP is always quite controversial. I mean, it starts from even the venue itself. There's always the debate about the venue, whether this country is indeed green or is trying to greenwash itself. So I think it's one of the most controversial meetings you find of world leaders. But I want to get a peek into the future. Is there even assurance that this $300 billion that was agreed upon would come through? Because some have said it's not really mandatory, particularly for economies like China. So this $300 billion on the one hand, is there assurance that it will come through? And what is it going to really do materially for us?
So that's it. It's not legally binding. So that's it. They just promised that we're going to do this. And it's up to them, just like they promised $100 billion yearly. So it's up to them to do what they said they're going to do. So this is a multilateral process. So it is built on trust. You have to believe that this is a gentleman agreement. Like, okay, you say you're going to do it. I'm taking your word for it. So that's why it's as if they're bickering for the whole 2 weeks, like, you know, lovers bickering and all that. And he mentioned China. Now China is a developed economy. But then they are talking about the damages that's been done before China even became, which is why China is in the same, it's so annoying. China is the same room as Nigeria, as Malawi, Uganda, G77 group, and China. So they are negotiating as the same bloc, asking for the same. So
even China.
Yes. So there's a group called G77 and China. Nigeria is there. African group of negotiators. African countries are there. You know, like, and you're wondering, what's the? China is one of the major emitters of greenhouse gases.
That's why I'm surprised.
So and then but then why we are doing is because there's this Paris Agreement that they're saying that this thing is embedded in the Paris Agreement that was done in 2015.
2015, yes.
Yes, so that was it. So China, that is the categorization. So when you have groups like this, and when you have the EU saying that even China is richer than us, why will be putting money on the table?
That's what I'm wondering. As we need to wind down, Donald Trump will be president again, January 20th. Yeah. You know where I'm going, right?
Yeah, right.
So just answer the question. What is when you guys were sitting down negotiating?
Are they coming out? I'm not a negotiator, actually.
You watch the proceedings.
Yeah.
And so the body language you saw, is everybody preparing for Donald Trump's coming? As far as many
people are concerned, it's as if America is out of it. But there's one thing I like us to, even then when Donald Trump pulled them out of the Paris Agreement, I think the Western media are making a big meal out of it. It's not as it is. Like, I mean, I was there in the room. They tried to make it all about Donald Trump, but it wasn't all about Donald Trump. People were like, you know what, whether America is there or not, we are moving on. We want what we want. So
will Donald Trump's presidency have any significant impact on that amount?
Yeah, like, no. Like the last time, if you look at it, that's where the subnationals, like now, Lagos State from Nigeria, they were holding event where, you know, looking for funds wherever it is. The subnationals, when Donald Trump pulled them out of the Paris Agreement the last time, America actually did well at the subnationals. So it depends on the state government, the local government, you know, to do their thing. So that's one beautiful thing about the whole thing. Like, if all of us want to help ourselves, you just take it upon yourself. America might be like, we're not doing, but they did much better than some countries, despite the fact that Donald Trump pulled them out. And now, I don't know, it might just be quiet. They might just be like China. They will not say anything about what they'll be doing. Now, China is investing heavily in renewables. I mean, they're like the world leaders now. Okay. So you might just be shocked.
At the end of the day, look, our only source of revenue right now is fossil fuel. So before we get on that table to agree on anything, to commit to anything, we have to look at our pocket and what we can do.
You see, when we start doing this, we start wasting money on some of the, because then we'll now have obsolete technology. Okay. That's what it's going to turn out to be. Well, so it's time, let's start leapfrogging like we did with mobile phones. Let's start leapfrogging so that we are not left behind. That is the SDG, so we will not be left behind.
Okay, you have turned to an advocate. Me, I'm in Nigeria.
I'm not an advocate. It's just that sometimes we have to tell ourselves the truth. You know, well, sometimes the journalists we became, I mean, we just like, but let's tell, what does the fact say? The fact is, if you're not careful, we'll be left behind. Do we want to be left behind? No.
No, we won't be left behind. Don't worry. We won't be left. Ayal Kasim is our environment correspondent. Thank you so much for bringing us up to speed with what happened in Azerbaijan, Baku. I know you're headed for Belém in Brazil soon. Well, thank you so much for coming. We will take a quick break. When we come back, we have some things for you that I don't want to reveal. Just stay right here and you'll find out what it is. Join us again. Welcome back. Let's talk to a researcher and educator. Obayemi Fasanya, she joins us in our Lagos studio. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me here today.
I think the most exciting part of your story is the fact that you have a PhD at 27.
Yes, I have a PhD.
So you spent all your life reading books.
Exactly. While my mates were enjoying their 20s, I was reading books.
How demanding was that?
Oof.
How demanding?
It took a lot. It took a lot. It took a lot of work. It took a lot of hard work. It took a lot of sacrifice because, again, I said there were people at my age were doing lots of things, but I was more about research. I just wanted to do research. So when I started my master's, I enjoyed the process. I enjoyed the research process, and that was why I said I want to do more. I don't want this, process to end. So after my master's, I said, you know what, let's find out more. And that was how I put in for the PhD. But I did not know it would come with so much work. But yes, it was actually worth it, all of the work, because at the end of the day, it's about the impact my thesis is making, and yes, it's worth the whole
let's talk
journey.
about that. Let's talk about that impact. And I know you did development communication. So what is this all about? And how are you using it to reach out to people within your age bracket? Because it's quite inspiring.
Yes.
These days, they say the attention span of younger generation is less than 10 seconds. But you put in the scholarly rigor to get yourself to where you are.
Yes. So for me, I believe that learning is a continuous process. And that is why when I started this journey, I thought about what I wanted to do. Communication is a key driver for social change, right? And for me, it's all about social change, it's all about social impact. So I delved into educational technology and to see how technology can bridge the gap, especially for those who are out of school. So, I mean, technology was adopted in Nigeria during COVID-19. I wanted to see how we could use, how technology was utilized, especially for public school children who probably did not have access to most of these tools. So I've been able to, my research has contributed to that field and, given several contributions and models that can ensure there's an inclusive learning framework, digital learning framework, especially for those who are out of school.
So how does it work for you, this thing you've developed?
Yes.
Maybe give us an example so that we have a common frame of reference.
Okay. So, for instance, you have lots of online learning platforms right now for students. But if you look at it, most of these platforms are basically for students in the middle class or more. We do not really think about the children who cannot have access, who do not even have access to technology to even start with. But again, they need to learn. There are a lot of children who are out of school even when there are access to this school environment, but because of insecurity and the likes, they can't be in school. So, you know, what my research has done is giving these contributions on how to ensure that these children who are out of school can also be in school, can remain in school using technology. So I reach out to some companies who I believe I can consult for using my research, because I believe that there should be a bridge between the town and gown. When industries, business leader, policymakers wants to make certain decisions, they actually need to start considering, you know, academia work. They need to start considering our research. So not just, because there are lots of research that has been done, and for me, I'm just reaching out to educational technology platforms to just see how I can bring in the outcome of my research to ensure we reach the children with the digital divide.
Okay. My colleague in Abuja has questions for you. Kaide.
Okay.
Well, thanks, Jeff. Good to meet you, at least over the camera. I'm really intrigued by your story. As Jeffrey said, you bagged your PhD at 27, right? So first, I want to know what your timeline is like. Because you see, at that age is when some people are just finishing, you know, their degree, their either BSc or what have you. So does your story smell of private university? I can smell private university in your story. Am I correct?
Okay, I don't like that you use the word smell of private university, but... Okay,
the fragrance of private university.
Okay, that works. So, yes, I'm starting my PhD at 22, actually. Yes, and I started early. I started education early, thanks to my parents. I really don't want to go into details of how I went through secondary school and all of those processes, but I started my PhD at 22, and now I'm 27.
Wow.
And of course,
wow.
Yes.
So, again, okay, you can land on that point. Exactly. And this is by no means, I mean, it's great that we have private universities. I think it's good we have some people to show that this is possible. As I said earlier on, at that 22 when you started PhD, is when some people are still trying to finish first year because of strikes and all of the back and forth. So it's good to see that these things are actually possible, and I think that's what private universities, you know, bring to bear. But speak to us about the quality, the rigor, and then the outcome, because a lot of people think education is a scam, right? There are lots of young people who say, nah, I don't want to do education, right? It's a scam. What they are teaching us in school is not relevant to real life. You finish school and you don't get the job. Imagine people who studied banking and finance, and they are, you know what? The point is education a scam? I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get, is education a scam for you? And what are the qualities in education?
Okay, so education is definitely not a scam, and as you can see, but I'd like to say I understand why so many people will think this way, but I think we need to start redefining what education is truly is. You know, we need to start redefining how even children at foundational stage view education. It's way beyond certificates and, you know, all of that. It's actually more of the skills, the process, you know, the responsibilities, the experience that comes with it. So that's basically what education is. And for me, I had to think about impact while doing my PhD. Of course, it was a rigorous process. There were lots of times where I doubted myself. There were lots of times where I doubted my research. But for me, it was honestly just about impact. So I was even thinking about getting a perfect thesis or writing a perfect dissertation. I was just particular about what kind of impact will this thesis make? What policy could it possibly influence? You know, what change could it bring in the world? So that was what I was just basically interested in. So education is definitely not a scam. Just rethink what education is. Yeah.
So we're quite impressed. That's what we brought you here. And for everybody who did a course in university, you know, they did this research methodology.
Yes.
One of the things that you will be told is some of the dangers of the research you see in some countries, college publish or perish, within the academia, where everybody's expected to, you know, improve on their degree to get promotion and all of that. So you see all kinds of publications, whether they are relevant to the society or not at the end of the day. So we're happy that you looked at the society and you said, this is how far I want to go in terms of making impact. Somebody said, don't focus on success, focus on fulfillment.
Okay.
So have you been finding fulfillment in this? And what are the projects you're taking on to practically deploy these things you did with the academics and deploy it practically in the lives of the young people?
Yes, so for me, what I've started doing actually is through my foundation, and what I do there is to inspire and foster young minds. Right. One of the reasons why I also push my PhD is because I want to be able to inspire young minds to know that, yes, regardless of your age or situation, you can do so much. And with my PhD thesis, lots of children, when they see me and realize, oh, you have a PhD, they're inspired and also want to know how they could also do more. So yes, why we need to start thinking beyond academic. PhD is not just about making academic contributions. Why most people would think I would remain in university teaching, I'm not doing that. I want to stay in primary and secondary education, foster young minds, help them discover themselves, help them build things. Basically, I'm interested in raising young leaders.
So I can see some of the things you're doing on the street. Maybe you talk us through what exactly you're doing with the young people. I don't know, what are you converting here? What are you converging them on? Where is this? How are you getting funding to drive all of this as we begin to wind down?
Yes. So again, I say I like to inspire young minds. I have an SDG club, that's Sustainable Development Goals Club I've created in schools. And the students understand how important it is for them to be global leaders, but they also know they need to start locally. So one of the things is our community cleanup project that some of the students took on as their graduation activities. We've also had times where the students created a proposal, they submitted a proposal to donate books to villages, to schools in villages, and then they do all of those things. Now, how do we fund these things? Honestly, the students I train are the best. They save their feeding fee. They just save their fee to ensure that, yeah, they can give back to the community. So while we look out for funds, the students make daily, weekly contributions. Like when we donated over 100 books to some students in a rural area, the students bought those books themselves with contributions from the schools, of course, but they were involved in all of those processes. And that is the kind of generation I'm leading. Global leaders, children will see challenges and are all about solving these challenges, yes.
Brilliant, brilliant. We're all for you and we're supporting you. That's why we brought you here.
Thank you very much.
Because you're democratizing opportunity by telling these children, go to school, get your hands dirty to support people as much as possible in the most legal way. Thank you so much. Researcher, educator, 27-year-old PhD holder. You love books.
I love books.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Well, we will take a quick break. When we come back, if you love yoga and how to revitalize yourself through yoga and exercise, this next segment is for you. Bukola is a cheerleader while we watch. Join us again.
It's going to take a very long time for me to forgive Jeffrey and Kadi for abandoning me on this segment. Well, you know what they say, fitness is important. With Nigeria's life expectancy pegged at 61, it's important for us to stay fit. So it's time to get you inspired on Fitness Friday segment of the Morning Brief. So we're exploring yoga. So who joins me this morning? No other than Rochelle Chukuma, the CEO, Grounded and Chilled. Hi, Rochelle.
Hi.
Finally, we get to do this,
I know.
right?
I mean, I'm so excited to be here. I'm grateful also.
Yeah.
It's an honor to be able to share this experience with you.
Yeah, and I'm excited to finally have you on the show. So we're exploring yoga and nature for fitness. So first of all, let's start with yoga. For some, they see it as, you know, another type of religion, and they'll not touch it with a 10-foot pole. So tell us what really yoga is for fitness.
Okay, so I'll say what yoga is for me so that I can be able to speak from my own experience. So yoga is connection to the body, the mind, and the soul. And because people are very separated from themselves, yoga for me brings me within, access to my breath, access to my body, and access to the soul, that is the consciousness above what I am experiencing now. So one thing I do with yoga is to bring well-being to myself, because a lot of times, a lot of things happens to us, and we need yoga to actually ground ourselves here. Expectations from the world, expectations from ourselves. If you can just take a minute to be in your breath, all the things that are disturbing you or making you feel like you're not connected just leaves you. And that is what yoga is for me, going within, connecting to myself, and just finding that ease in the midst of all the chaos. And when you call fitness, it's the movement, because energies are stored in the body. So we need to move our body. So that is where the well-being come in, movements. But Nigerians like to think yoga is just fitness. It is transcendental. It is more than fitness. It is well-being. It is connection. And it is presence. Yeah.
So when you're reaching into the within, other than your own mind and your own mental state, what are you reaching into? I guess that's the question, you know, that people have about yoga.
I think because it's within, it's very personal.
Okay.
It is what you see when you go within. What I see when I go within might be different from what you see.
So what do you see when you go within?
It's personal. But there's more of like life, like more of my experiences. My subconscious shows up a lot of time. But because yoga is a practice and a journey, I am reaching to the place of bliss where it's just bliss within myself.
Okay, so you're going to take me through yoga now while I call the God that I know within.
Okay, that's really good. I didn't even mention God.
Okay, so that's smart. We're also supposed to talk about nature for wellness, but maybe we can do that within the time frame that we have. Let's manage our time because we promised yoga. Okay, so what would you have me do?
So first thing I'd like you to do is to arrive into your body. Do you mind me coming close to you?
Yes, come close.
And touching you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so firstly, you have to like just release your body.
Okay.
Like release is more of like relaxation. So bring your awareness to your breath. Take a breath in. Slowly, very slowly, and out slowly. So take a breath in through your nose, slowly, and out slowly. One more time, take a breath in slowly, and out slowly. So I'd like for you to not move your body when breathing in.
Okay.
The breath is quite internal. So take a breath in without moving. And out. Slowly. In slowly. And out slowly. One more time, in slowly. And out slowly. So you can slowly open your eyes.
Okay.
Now bring your awareness to your feet. Make sure they are hip width apart and your second toe is facing forward.
Okay.
Yeah. Then just bring your awareness to your calves, your thigh, your belly. Make sure you're not tight.
Okay.
Yeah, just release your body. Now bring your awareness to your belly button. That's your core. Pull it up into your belly. So your pelvis up into the belly. Yeah, release. There's a little tension here. Release, 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 release. Now just open your eyes. Slowly bring your hands up to the sky.
Up to the sky.
Now palms facing each other. So your hands, they're facing each other, not touching each other. This way. Aha. So pull up. Ground your feet properly.
Okay.
Make sure your hands are back.
Okay.
Just go back a bit. Aha, aha, aha. Now open your eyes and just be in your body now. Just release anything. Ground your feet more. Let your feet touch the ground better. Now release. Take a breath in. Now bring your hands down, breathing out.
Oh, quite relaxing.
If your hands can't touch the ground, you can bend your knee.
Okay.
Aha. Then bring your heads down. Stay there for just 2 breaths. Take a breath in.
While my hands are down, right?
Yes, in.
Okay.
And out. In slowly. Out slowly. Now bring your awareness back to your body. Slowly come back up. Slowly.
You did that faster than I did.
Because I'm taking my own time. My body's here.
Okay. So I'm not in touch with my body, right?
You are in touch with your body.
Okay.
Now bring your hands down. Bring your hands down to your sides.
Okay.
One thing I'd like for us to do is to make sure we touch the entire body, because this is standing posture and I wouldn't want you to go to the ground.
Okay.
So first thing first, we start with the head. So just up, down, up, down, up.
So through all of this, when and how do you transcend?
It's a practice.
Because I've been very conscious of the process so far.
That's why you haven't transcended.
There's a lot of laughing backstage.
Because you have,
okay.
We're having a practice that is first of all recorded, and I'm teaching you. So that means there's more of the external happening than the internal. So the transcendental part happens during your practice.
During the practice?
Your practice.
Okay, during my practice.
Your personal practice.
Okay.
And it can happen in 2 years, 3 years. It's not a one day. It depends on how deep you're willing to go with yourself.
Okay.
So now bring your hands forward.
Okay.
Then just the hands face it down. Yeah. So this, just the wrist. And this. Yeah. One more time. In.
So how does this impact on my overall wellness?
Your body's moving.
Okay.
You're connecting to your body. Energy's flowing. That's one of the things that are happening right now. So bring this way.
Okay.
In.
And so in 30 seconds, tell us about exploring nature for wellness.
Nature, like I like to say, is us. We're part of an ecosystem. But because we like to think that we're separated from it, we do not really connect to the well-being that comes with being in nature. So I'll give you an example. I was in the hospital for a bit this month, and I was just being pumped with a lot of drugs. And I was like, you know what? I need to just go under the sun, because the sun has a lot of energy. Literally, we can get solar energy from the sun. So imagine what the sun can do to the body. Imagine how it will heal us. If you go to the water, how the water can heal us. If you go to the mountain, how it can heal us. So
okay, so you stepped out of the hospital a bit
to use the sun to heal myself. And
okay.
I got better.
All right.
Yeah.
There's so much more to learn from Rochelle. I got introduced to her smudge for wellness.
Yes.
But there's no time to talk about that. Rochelle, I want to thank you so much for your time on the program.
I just came to say amen.
I was not alone after all.
Yeah. Guys, that's it. So Bukola is a cheerleader. I just came to say amen. So thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jeffrey, Sunrise Daily is up next.
Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back again next week. I am Bukola Koka.
Wow.
And I'm Kayode Okikiolu. Thank you very much.